Hello guys and welcome to a new Wargame video today by me Vulcan. Today I have for you a 2 versus 2 on Plunjing Valley, and in this game I am going to be playing with Boltsauce, who's decided to join me in this particular game for a commemoration of the 100th anniversary of the Gallipoli campaign and ANZAC Day, which was on Saturday. Now, I had intended to get the video out sooner, but unfortunately it had to be delayed, so I'm bringing it to you now. And for those of you unfamiliar with the Gallipoli campaign, basically it's a place in Turkey, the Gallipoli Peninsula, and what happened was the British and the French originally sent a navy up to attack Constantinople, or get to Constantinople, but the Turkish had fortified the straits up towards the Black Sea, and therefore a campaign was designed in order to take over the peninsula that had the guns on them, in order to silence them. So what ended up happening was there was a combined British, French and ANZAC invasion of the Gallipoli Peninsula, and unfortunately all didn't quite go to plan, and it was ultimately a catastrophe. So last Saturday was in order to commemorate those who lost their lives in that disaster, and this game for us was a chance for us to show our respects in our form of a wargame game, which hopefully you guys will enjoy. So today we're both going to be using ANZAC motorized decks, and it's going to be very, very infantry based, of course, because motorized decks do utilize that capability. ANZAC do lack quite a lot of tanks, and you'll see that come into effect later in the game. But let's have a quick look at what I'm starting with. So we have some ASLAV PCs. These are going to be coming in with Commandos 90s. We then have some Stollies with, I think, MRAWs. And we also have a Stolly with a Milan 2 squad. I have some M41A1s. These are basically very small 10-point tanks, and quite good at sort of supporting infantry, and especially good at catching out tanks in forests. You can overwhelm your opponent, so I can get 4 tanks for 40 points, and they would be able to destroy a tank worth maybe 100 points in a forest if they all came up at the same time and all firing their guns at point blank distance, because they use kinetic shells. So they're going to do more damage the closer range they are. I also have an ASLAV 25. This is basically the ASLAV PC with an auto gun on the top of it. It's basically an LAV. Then we have the tracked rapiers. I've got a tracked rapier and a tracked rapier FSA. Actually got 2 tracked rapiers. Tracked rapiers are better for shooting down helicopters because they are infrared, and the tracked rapier FSA is radar, so it is better at shooting down aircraft, has a longer range. I also have a Vickers Mark 11. This is probably, I think, the most expensive tank. Well, it's more of an APC with a gun on it, but basically the most expensive kinetic gun I'm bringing in. Very low armor, but very good stats on its main gun. You can see 2,275 meter range with 60% accuracy and a 55% stabilizer, 17 AP power for 50 points. Incredibly good main gun on that. It is the armor that lets it down at the end of the day. You can see all my M41A1s with their stunning camo rolling down in convoy, very, very close to each other, and with my track rapiers following. And I also have this Unimog here with my command infantry. That's going to be moving all the way up to Foxtrot in order to capture that. I brought in some napalm at the start with one of my planes. The plane managed to get out alive, but that is going to delay the WZ551s from getting into the town, although they are just going to drive straight through the napalm, but that is going to severely damage the morale of those forces. I've got a bushranger coming up here with the AS-350, my recon helicopter, in order to put the pain down with its twin minigun and those 70mm heat rockets. Basically trying to get that to attack. Unfortunately, it is driving straight into auto cannon range, but hopefully going to get a few hits off. manages to take out one of the WZ-551s before the Zanchi dropped out, so it does a little bit of extra damage there. Unfortunately, I lose that, basically due to the fact that it flew a little bit closer than I had expected. The attack move didn't quite work to plan. So now my Milan 2 is dropped out. That's going to be trying to snipe that WZ-551 and does so successfully. Got my ASLAV 25 recon moving in on the right side, whilst the rest of my infantry moves around the left with the M41A1s. My track rapiers and track rapier FSA staying behind the buildings nice and safely. And seeing the WZs moving into the forest here, I am indeed dropping out a couple of squads of infantry just to deal with that. The tanker Shashal did pick off one of my ASLAV 25s before it got into the forest. This ZTQ-62G is going to provide a bit of an issue for me. Quite a decent gun there in order to take on my M41A1s. Which are getting a bit ahead of themselves. I am spreading them out, as you can see by the micro. They are spreading themselves out, but the idea is as soon as I spot an infantry squad, they will get absolutely annihilated by the amount of guns that will be firing at them. So I managed to take out the WZ-551s on the left. We have a MiG-21 BIS coming in, going to get a couple of kills there. My track rapier FSA does get taken out by the Su-24, but fortunately the track rapiers are infrared, so they managed to get a couple of shots off and take out the MiG-21 BIS. Didn't manage to get the Su-24 in the end because of the high ECM. Another MiG-21 BIS coming in now though, and that is going to start firing at my other units, but not before I allow it to, because of my two Phantom 2s that I bring in. These are beautiful planes. They have a really nice camouflage on them, and they come with infrared and SEMAC radar missiles. So here comes the push, using my M41A1s to soak up the majority of the fire whilst my commandos move into the left side of the town. The track rapier manages to shoot down the Mi-8, but not before it gets blown up by the rocket pods from those. So now it's basically time for me to push as far as I can into this town, using my ASLAV PCs as fire support. The M2 Browning machine guns, they're going to come in very handy. Got my MRAWs moving across in the open with those Carl Gustav M2 rockets. Unfortunately, Su-24M comes in, does get a huge bombing strike onto my commandos. I was hoping that because I was moving them forwards, they would actually miss that bombing strike, but they didn't actually hit my units quite effectively there. So the Zanchi holding strong at the moment, and we do now have a B5 bomb coming in, and that doesn't make things any better. Takes out the rest of my APCs other than these two ASLAV PCs, which miraculously survived, but we managed to get rid of the Zanchi in this town, and now I'm slowly moving forwards the commandos. This Ka-50 Akula having a field day up here. Can't really afford to get my track rapiers forwards because they've already been destroyed. So that has left my initial attack very vulnerable to these helicopters, and especially with the help of the exceptional recon here of the Ka-52, that's allowing them to pick off all my units, my Vickers also being taken out there. That was a bit of a mistake on my part, probably should have moved that back seeing the HGMs come in, but quite a lot of losses for me at the start, especially losing the tracked rapiers here and basically not completely securing the town. I kind of thought at this point that there wasn't going to be much more infantry here, and if there was, it would be like a full stack because I hadn't searched the other side of the town yet. So I don't manage to actually move up just yet and take out those QW1 squads, as I was very apprehensive to move on and do that. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm helping Boltsauce in the middle with some more M41A1s in order to take on these Lijuan. M41A1s are actually quite good at taking on Lijuan because the Lijuan do have napalm rounds. It is just the fact that they have these ZTZ-85-2s, probably one of the most cost-efficient tanks that you can get on the Red 4 side, and the ZTQ-62G, my favourite recon tank in the game. They're using those in combination to just get a ton of shots onto the enemy. I bring in an A4K Kahu to pick off these ZTZ-85-2s. And also Boltsauce has brought up a Bush Ranger to help us out. So hopefully that's going to be finishing off the ZTZ there. And if not, then it's not too much of an issue. But now coming across the QW1 squads here, my Commando 90 squad that had 3 men left actually took quite a lot of damage engaging those squads, which is very interesting. The infrared squads really holding their own, but now they have the reinforcements when I do not, because my ANZAC PCs weren't forced to move into the forest here to avoid being killed by the ZTZ-85's flanking, which has delayed my reinforcements quite significantly. And now these Commando 90 squads with very few men left are going to get picked off very easily, unfortunately. So that's going to give the town back to the red side. Su-24M coming again with the Su-24 in order to land another bombing strike, which is going to finish off my APC. Not really get any other kills because the Commandos are too far forward. So Commandos pick off another APC before they go down to the overwhelming number of Zadshi. We have the ASLAB 25 doing its best here with the Bushmaster cannon, actually ripping apart these two Zadshi squads. Getting very low on ammo though as they approach. As long as it takes out both these Zadshi squads before they move into the forest, I should be perfectly fine. And now we've taken care of the ZTZ here. That has kind of secured my flank, and I do have the AS-350 sitting over this building in order to remain in the air to spot any other flanking attempts. But Boltsauce having a hard time in the center. He is being pushed pretty hard, and we are going to be trying to push back against this, unfortunately, with my M41A1s dying to the ZTZs. That has left Boltsauce with not much fire support whatsoever. But we do still have the command points even. Currently we're actually ahead as we did secure both Foxtrot and Bravo very early in the game with Alpha, but unfortunately Alpha was pushed really hard, and as you can see, Dodo is moving up this command infantry squad that is going to provide us with a bit of issue. So Boltsauce's diggers now moving into the compound there, bumping into the Zadshi on the left. We have the Zadshi over on this side, Foxtrot. They're going to be attacking my APCs and giving away their position. And actually, if I put it to my point of view, you'll see that I can't actually see much of what's going on at the moment. I do have the AS-350 here, and I am trying to save that from the WZ-551 with the Milan 2. But it's not really spotting much. All I can see is more ZTZ-85-2s coming up, which is not good at all. These things are just so cost efficient. If we go back to the neutral perspective, you can see that they cost 65 points. They have a 2,275 meter range gun, 50% accuracy, 40% stabilizer, and 16 AP power. Very, very powerful tanks, those, with the 12 front armor as well. So anyway, more reinforcements coming up for me. Unfortunately, I didn't quite notice the ZTZs moving through the forest there. See, they have not been spotted by my helicopter, which is currently landed and repairing. So I've brought these in, and just before I micro them into the forest, you can see that one of the squads did get severely harmed by a shot from the ZTZ there. So currently, with Foxtrot and Bravo both being neutralized by the red side, we are now at a +2 deficit, which is really, really bad for us. I'm trying to move these Commando 90s across the open towards the Zadshi 85, but the Zadshi 85 do hold their own when they are in a defensive position, and you can see as I try and push the Commandos 90s across without any smoke support, they are going to get killed with the help of the ZTZs on the right side. So I brought up some more M41A1s to do the same thing as I did initially, but unfortunately with the ZTZ-85s there, the M41A1s do not really stand a chance unless they can get extremely close. And one problem that you can see occurring is the fact that they run out of fuel by the time they get to their location, which is a big, big issue. Anyway, I've got my Milan 2 here, finally can fire onto the ZTZ-85s, so we can start doing that. And with these Commando 90s kind of sacrificing themselves across the open, they did get very low on numbers, and well, with these actually now jumping in behind these Commando 90s, I can only just about get these in, but they are going to be sharing that with the Zanshi until they can kill them. And the ZTZ-85s are still going to be getting their shots off, which is a massive issue for me throughout this game. So Su-24M coming in is going to be bombing the APCs that brought those commandos in. So not too much damage being done there. I'm surprised they didn't really focus on killing off the commandos with those, because they could have just quickly jumped back the Zanshi in that case. Boltsauce has managed to get some New Zealand SAS around the back of Echo, which has spotted this UAZ, so he is going for a bit of a hidden strike back there. I've got my Phantom 2s now in, just to circle around and make sure that no more bombing strikes come in whilst I try and push up the remainder of my forces. But not really much for me to use at the moment. I have brought up this Leopard AS1 at the backside there. I've got this LRPV Parenti, nice recon jeep with a grenade launcher on it. That is going to help me spot a few things left out in the open with the help of the AS350 there. But that AS350 is still hovering very low. I thought that that was actually much higher than it was, but that is actually restricting its line of sight quite heavily as it's kind of floating in the building there. Some very spectacular maneuvers. Anyway, Boltsauce has managed to push his way back up through Alpha with his diggers and these SASR. He's taking on now these Tanker Shashao and has spotted the Yihui-ban capturing Alpha, and we really need to stop them from doing so right now to stop the bleeding, because this +2 deficit is a big problem. So I'm bringing in an MB339CB, which is my napalm bomber, in order to spread napalm behind the area where his diggers are pushing. And the idea of this is to cut off any reinforcements. Unfortunately, in this case, the napalm didn't exactly land where I had hoped. It kind of spread to the left when I wanted it to spread to the right. And that was kind of a big mistake, because you can see the amount of VDV here that would have been affected by that if the napalm was slightly more to the right. So the Su-24M coming in again is going to end up wiping out the rest of those SASR. A huge loss for Boltsauce, and that is going to set him back significantly, especially with the incoming VDV and the ZTZ-85 there acting as fire support. So now I have my infantry reinforcements coming up, more Aslav PCs with the Stollies. These Stollies have the MRAW, these have some flame infantry, and hopefully with these APCs I'm going to be able to push once again into Foxtrot. One thing I completely neglected throughout this game was the fact that they had occupied this forest now. If I jump into the neutral perspective, they still have a ZTQ-62G here, and they are indeed moving up their own reinforcements in order to take control of that forest. If I'd put more emphasis on putting some more M41A1s through this forest earlier in the game, then I would have been able to secure the town much more convincingly. And then I also would have been able to move some more anti-air around the left side here. You can see I've now brought up the extra tracked rapiers. I've got my Leopard AS1 moving up. I've got these New Zealand SAS just landed with the Chinook there. And now they're actually pushing against me with the Lijuan, which isn't necessarily a great idea for them. As long as they're holding on to Foxtrot, they should probably focus their efforts at Alpha, because they made so much of a foothold initially. And they could also focus more on Bravo, but you can see Boltsauce just putting some Aslav PCs around the right side in order to recon for anything moving round here. And you can see indeed he does bump into some VDV, so that is quite an issue. I'm bringing in another napalm bomber to help with the attacks onto the top of Alpha. And now you can see my infantry all here. I'm just kind of not wanting it to be spotted, so that's why you can see I'm building it up here rather than sending it towards the town immediately, because I don't want the Lijuan to spot it and then it get bombed, because they are all very clustered at the moment. So I need to wait really and then spread them out as I attack. Now ideally what you want to do with infantry in particular as you're moving through forests is keep them in squads of 1. In this case I don't do that, and it does become quite an issue, because what happens if you keep them in squads of 2 is only one squad will actually engage. So you can see here that this squad is actually ahead of my other squad. And if this squad on the left bumps into those 2 Liege 1 squads, for example, the other squad won't necessarily move up quick enough in order to engage those squads, so you're better off keeping them separate to avoid that. So some Hyondaes actually spotted on the left side there. You can see my SAS are engaging those. I've pushed up the Leopard AS1 in order to counter the Liege 1, because they are using napalm shells. They aren't going to last very long against my tank. So my tank being pushed forwards. We've got my Hornet coming in with a bombing strike onto the Hyondaes. Does a wonderful job of cutting that squad in half. Got my Assault Pioneers with the Commandos 90s ready to push onto the Zhanshi, but unfortunately the Zhanshi do get a kill onto my Leopard AS1 as I was about to reverse it. So that kind of sets me back, but allowing my Commandos 90s and the SAS here to try and do as much damage to the Hyondaes as possible. The Su-24 now coming in is going to bomb my SAS squad. Fortunately, avoids my Commandos and Assault Pioneers and the Emeralds that are actually pushing into the town. So I do get away with that, and I finish off the Hyondaes squads on the left. So that's really nice. And now I'm open to attack Foxtrot without the risk of the bombing strike. So I have my Phantom 2s moving in now with Boltsauce. I requested that he brought in his as well, just in case we bumped into any issues. MiG-21 Bis here is going to get shot down eventually by those 2 Phantom 2s. And this MiG-31M, what a hero this is, shoots down both my Phantom 2s with like 2 missiles, because the Phantom 2s were flying so close together that one of the missiles actually exploded and hit both of them at the same time. And allowed that MiG-31 to get those 2 beautiful kills. I guess it was a bit of a mistake on my part that I kept them so close together, but really lucky in that case that occurred, because I should have only probably lost 1 Phantom in that situation, but now I've lost the majority of my air superiority. I do have a 3rd Phantom on the deck, so that is going to have to take up responsibility for the air now. But having only 1 left over 2 is a massive issue. So anyway, I'm trying to push in more infantry like I was before. I've got the ASLAV 25 here, providing a little bit of recon, but here comes the Su-24M. This thing was just doing so much damage throughout the game and does now pick off my 2 reinforcing Commandos 90s units, which is, again, it's painful. I can't really afford to be losing the infantry like this, because I really do need to make progress in this town. So now a coordinated napalm strike on the left side with Boltsauce is going to set a lot of napalm all over this town and hopefully allow us to make some progress. But a nice dodge there by Dodo makes the units move forwards. The Zhanshi are going to continue to contest the Emerald squad, and the Assault Pioneers Su-27SK is now brought over the airspace, going to fire at this A4K Kahu, which manages to just about get out. Again, Boltsauce now trying to help me focus on the left side after regaining control of Alpha. Still not really many forces here. He was still being affected by the bombers just as much as I was, but now I'm bringing up even more reinforcements, M41A1s with the Stollies and the ASLAV PCs. You can see here these ASLAV PCs at the top side, kind of a symbol of things to come. I was hoping that I would be able to now move my infantry around from the top side, because at the moment I'm currently trying to go from here to here, which is the reason you do that is because it's the shortest distance from cover to cover. And instead of doing that, I could push my APCs all the way around if I moved up the left side here and actually completely avoid being hit by the tanks on the right side, whilst also getting infantry into the town still. And the infantry would only have to run down this small cliff in order to get into the town, which would be really good. Luckily for me, the Su-24M that came into bomb then didn't take out this Commando 90 squad, so it is going to do a little bit of damage toward those Zhanshi before they get picked off. But the ANZAC-25 doing a good job here of picking off some APCs as they try to move into cover. My infantry now getting into position once again. And you can see the M41A1s are suffering from that autonomy. Their fuel just goes down so quickly, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, as they are moving across those roads. By the time they actually get to where you want them to be, they're normally out of fuel. So I do have this Mankati 6x6 here in order to refuel those tanks and also replenish any infantry that manages to survive. ANZAC-25 is now able to open up on the Zhanshi 85 after I move back my Commando 90s, knowing that my M41s are now in position. I am going to move back these Commando 90s to draw the Zhanshi into the fire support of the M41A1s, pushing across some SASR as quickly as possible to take the place of those Commandos 90s as they fall. And that will allow us to continue a presence on this town. My ASLAV PC here just managed to drop out the Commando 90s before the HGM hits. Initially I did get one of the Commando 90 squads damaged a lot by the APC being destroyed. A reasonably good napalm strike there by Boltsauce is going to slow down those VDV squads, but I'm moving across a couple of SASR squads to go take care of that, whilst my SASR squads in the town continue to put pressure on the other side of Foxtrot. Boltsauce has now brought up some mortars, and those are going to be trying to find the enemy command vehicle. Su-27SK baited over our lines. My Phantom II shoots that down with the help of my track rapiers and all our anti-air support. Here come more bombers and so on. We shoot down one MiG-29, one Su-24, and this MiG-25BM just gets away. So at this point, one of our opponents surrenders. Christopher Dorner did leave the game after that initial airstrike, and now it is up to the Dodo in order to bring this back for his team, because currently they are in the lead, 158 points to 120, and I was hoping that this would give us a chance. The Leopard AS1 there on the left there, and just no match for the ZTZ85s, and they almost cost the same amount. It's actually ridiculous. Leopard AS1 there, 55 points, 65% accuracy with 50% stabilizer. Very, very good gun, but it's just the armor really significantly lets them down in comparison to the ZTZs. But my Commando 90s there taking care of that one, allowing my SASR to get back into position. So Boltsauce tells me about the VDV moving across here, and I am forced to move back my Commando 90s to deal with those VDV as they are moving across the open. So you can see that I'm now preparing with all these M41A1s in order to push further into the town. Bombing strike does come in there, and we have a Fabio not going to get shot down this time round by my track rapiers. Got a napalm strike coming in onto the VDV. This one's going to land right on top of them and force them to burn to death this time round. And as they do approach the Commando 90s, they're going to get picked off in the open as well. The napalm there removing any cover that they initially had. And you can see just how much of an effect these ZTZ85s are having. The F-18 Hornet here coming in with a bombing strike onto the ZTZs in order to slow those down, and you can see I'm trying to do something about that now with the M41A1s. Like I was saying, I should have done a lot sooner, because it would have allowed my push into this town to be a lot more effective, because currently I've lost a lot of infantry to those tank shells and the infantry that has been in the town, when I could have just been facing the infantry on the town. So my SNAS are moving up going to be picking off the WZ551s to get rid of their fire support. I do spot the command unit of the enemy at the back of Foxtrot there, so I am going to be trying to do something about that. Unfortunately, B5 bomb does come in and take out my SASR squad in the town, but the Kahu from Boltsauce does pick off the command unit. Covering his diggers with this smoke, Boltsauce is continuing to put pressure on the Zanchi in the town as we try to get control of Foxtrot. Unfortunately for us, Alpha has been contested again, and that is a big issue for us. I brought up a couple of Milan 2 squads to help Boltsauce secure Alpha, but it's not stopping them from putting a command unit in the top of Alpha, which was constantly being bombed previously. And with Boltsauce occupied on the left with me now, we don't have as much pressure in the center. So my Aslav 25 actually picking off Estrella before it gets taken out by the KA-50. That was quite a nice kill for me. Trying to move forwards this Track Rapier to pick off the KA-50 Akula. And these Commando 90 squads are actually waiting for some reinforcements before I decide to push back into the town once again. And the Stollies now being taken out, that's a huge loss for me actually, because I think these Stollies have SASR, and it's so painful to watch this again. And it was painful at the time. I literally lost 2 entire squads of SASR due to the ZTZs actually moving further up on this right side, which really caught me off guard. I initially thought this smoke was in the right position, but it turns out they obviously moved their tanks, and those tanks seriously started doing a lot of damage. And as I'm now trying to get these M41s towards this tree line, they're now being picked off by the BMPs. Luckily my Milan 2 is there to help out, and a couple of them do survive, so I can push those into the forest there. SU-27SK does shoot down one of the Kahus that is brought in by Boltsauce, and his Phantom 2 does not get the kill before the SU-27SK gets out. So we are still at a deficit. And a +2 lead still for the Red Force side. And you've got to remember, this is only one guy fighting against us now, but we have just so much of our forces now concentrated on this left side, and the initial bombing strikes from the Red Force side were doing so much damage. I don't think that even they realized how much it was affecting us. Obviously Commando 90s, they are 20-point squads, so not, extremely expensive, but when you're losing a lot of them to those bombing strikes, it is pretty ridiculous. So now I'm bringing in some napalm at the backside of the sector in order to prevent any reinforcements as I now push through the front toward the town. The ZTZs once again open up, and with my M41A1s in position here, they ran out of fuel. So they're not actually going to be any use. You can see as I decide to try and move these forwards, they actually run out of fuel just out of range of the ZTZ-85s, and that is a huge issue for me, because as I'm trying to push this infantry across the open here with the APCs, they're just going to get hit by these tanks. And ultimately what I should have done is probably sent a napalm bomber to this side, or asked for that smoke support from Boltsauce. But in the end, I did neither, and I paid the price. So a massive misplay from my point of view. Those ZTZ-85s still a huge issue, and unfortunately the M4A1's now just going to get picked off because they've run out of fuel one by one. If the idea with the M41A1s against the ZTZs is that you would have 4v1, not 1v1. And because they are being picked off one by one, they don't do anything. So the Fabio coming in again isn't going to get shot down this time either. Even with the amount of RBS squads, B5 bomb comes in and absolutely annihilates all of my APCs in this forest here, along with an M41A1, and my commandos there just get out alive. So another push of mine completely annihilated, mainly due to my own misplay. Really should have napalmed this forest or got it smoked before I decided to push my infantry through the open. Now the B5 could have still come in, but if my troops were in the town by then, they probably would have ended up killing their own troops, as I would have been able to move with them as they tried to escape it. Either way, bit of an issue. We do have a Su-27 SK coming in. I'm going to be using my Hornet here to try and deliver a bombing strike onto Foxtrot, and Boltsauce's Phantom 2s are going to be trying to shoot down this Su-27 SK, but it's just going to get out in time after taking a shot from one of the Phantoms, but that will put it out of action. You've got to remember that there is a massive repair time for aircraft if they do get hit, so that is going to put the Su-27 SK out of action for a while. Dropping another bombing strike onto the town, some napalm there, trying to burn up some more of the infantry. Boltsauce bringing around a bushranger on the left side, going to catch out one of the Red 4 helicopters. And, well, we're just trying to think of everything we can do. We probably should have really focused more on the center now than on the left side. But you can see I'm now actually bringing up some Scorpion 90s. Now, I'm not really familiar with how good these are. I don't think they're very good at all. But a pretty interesting unit, a British unit initially. And I was going to use these the same way that I was using the M41A1. So I was going to try and push them into this forest in order to sweep out the ZTZs. Unfortunately, ZTZs are very, very powerful. Another B5 coming in is going to be bombing my push. Although, did that even drop its bomb? I don't think it did. Or if it did, it didn't hit anything. My commandos managing to get to the town with the fire support of the AS-1 and the ASLAB 25s as well. And we did do a lot of damage to the Azanchis using that fire support. But the commandos now again being hit by the ZTZ-85s, and that is not something that is good to see. So some Z98 TY90s there, going to be picking off this Chinook of Boltsauce's, not allowing him to flank around the backside of Foxtrot. J7H bringing in a 1,000 kilogram bomb is going to be shot down. And yeah, ZTZ still here. You've got the ZTQ-62G still there. And those two tanks, you know, one's veteran, that's just not good for me at all. There isn't any way that I'm going to be able to push infantry across this area without taking fire from the ZTQs unless I napalm or smoke it. And in this case, it's just not going to happen. Boltsauce's Phantom 2s trying to shoot down a couple of aircraft, but getting themselves shot down now with the reinforcing anti-air in the center of the map. This PTZ-59 is going to get taken out by my Scorpion 90s. So one of my Scorpion 90s does go down for that. But either way, what I should have been doing at this point is what I was talking about earlier, is moving my infantry all the way around to where these RBS squads are, and moving down from the top of the cliff. And the trouble is, with these Liege 1 in the town now, all my Commandos 90s are very much dead on the floor there as they move across the open. Bringing in my Hornet to land another bombing strike onto this ZTQ-62G, but not going to destroy it. We'll have my napalm bomber coming in, also trying to land some napalm onto the tank, but that actually misses pretty much. ZTQ forced to drive back through it, though. Isn't going to get destroyed. So these Commando 90s do get into the town, but against the Liege 1 in this close quarters combat aren't going to be as effective because the Liege 1 do have those napalm launches. I'm trying to get this Leopard AS1 to move across and get into a position where it can fire into the town. But you got to remember there is still this ZTZ-85 here on the right side. So as I am now pushing up with the ASLAB 25s after doing that napalm I was talking about, they still have this ZTZ here, and that is going to prove an issue. So Napalm again trying to come in and guess where the enemy command is. I'm just missing the command infantry at the backside there. And well, I do manage to pick off the ZTZ-85 with the Milan 2 finally, but the ZTQ is still in that tree line as my commandos have secured themselves a foothold on the left side of Foxtrot. But at this point, you got to remember there is a time limit. 4 minutes left, and currently the Red Force side has secured themselves a 378 point lead to our 120, which is massive, and there isn't really much chance at this point in the game that we are going to bring that back. So considering this is, you know, only one person against 2 players now, the Dodo 1001 did an incredible job. Now we finally get rid of the command unit in Alpha, but as I was saying before, it is getting a bit too late into the game to bring back the lead that we initially had in this game. Unfortunately, the ZTZ-85 is just outclassing my Leopard AS1s and wrecking my infantry as I move them across the open due to my own mistake of not napalming or not smoking. It's incredibly important that you do that. And in this case, you can see that's one reason why I did lose a lot of my infantry. Just look at that. ZTZ-85s, 8 round per minute rate of fire. Another reason they're so brilliant. Absolutely wrecking my SASR as they move across the open. Su-27SK coming in, taking out a couple of aircraft. My Hornet doesn't get out alive either due to the HQ-61As. My napalm strike this time finally lands on top of the infantry that was capturing Foxtrot, but that only had to move a little distance in order to avoid it. You can see that it's just sitting on the edge of the napalm there. Only had to move back a tiny bit in order to avoid that napalm strike, which was very unfortunate. But again, at this point in the game, we're just trying to do our best to finish strong. MB is going to get shot down there after it lands its napalm strike. That's basically intending to stop any reinforcements. This time round, the Fabio is going to go down thanks to my Track Rapier FSA landing that shot after I turned it back on once it moved past. And now with my SASR coming down the hill, I'm trying that tactic that I was saying before, coming from the direction of the RBS, but with the B5 coming down with that bomb, it is actually going to not affect my assault pioneers whatsoever, but I have already lost all the infantry in the town that was covering their advance, so that's a big issue for me. The Lijuan here already occupying the town, not going to allow my assault pioneers to get close enough to deal with that, and the KA-52 here with the KA-50 Akula microed very nicely in order to take care of my Leopard AS1 that was hopefully going to be providing fire support or trying to kill off the ZTZs or the ZTQ-62Gs. But again, it's literally this combination, the KA-50 Akula and the KA-52, been doing so much work throughout the game. We've had the ZTZ-85s in this tree line. Should have dealt with that a lot sooner. Got my own foothold in there. You can see at this point I do have some M41A1s that were preparing to push into this forest to deal with the tank presence there. To stop them from firing across the open, but I'm just basically throwing everything I can at them with 20 seconds left to go in the game. Hornet coming in for a hopefully lucky bombing strike, and well, look at that, look how close that is. The command infantry is there, the 500 kilogram bomb lands just here. So unlucky. I obviously didn't know where this command infantry squad was. If I jump back to my point of view, you couldn't see that. But there you have it. The Dodo really holding his own against both myself and Boltsauce and winning himself the day on this 40-minute match of us trying to showcase the ANZAC motorized deck. So anyway, a massive thanks to Boltsauce for joining me in this game. It was a pretty interesting one. You can see our kill deaths aren't too bad. 3,015 kills for me, 3,570 losses. Obviously a negative kill death, but against those ZTZ85s and the Lijuan and stuff, there isn't really much the ANZAC motorized can do to match up to that, which was the biggest problem in this game. There were obvious strategies I could have pulled off in order to reduce my losses, like I was saying, extra smoke, extra napalm on those tanks, just to block their line of sight and force them to move away from where they were. Moving some more M41A1s into that forest sooner would have surely secured that for me in order to attack Foxtrot more successfully. So plenty of things I could have done in hindsight that would have made this game a lot better. But either way, hopefully still an interesting one for you guys to watch. Thanks again to Boltsauce for playing with me, and make sure you guys go check out his channel. He does do his own wargame content, so there is plenty of that over there for you. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description, so thanks a lot to him, and yeah, make sure you go check him out. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.